Welcome all, welcome all. As always, try to have something for everybody, and we got yet another very talented horror mystery director. Dana Elcar is on the show to talk about his new movie, Brightwood. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It's I will say it is Dane Elcar. My father is Dane Elcar.
Dane Elcar.
So close. It was in the mind. Okay. But that's all right.
Either way, I mean, what kind of a year has it been for you in terms of just behind the scenes and getting everything off the ground?
I mean, it's been crazy. I mean, we shot the film a number of years ago. We shot the film in 2021, of May of 2021. So just the whole post-production and then getting it actually distributed and then waiting for this day to come where it was released on August 22nd has just been kind of incredible, exciting, also horrifying. And now that we're on the other side of its release, the film kind of goes out and has to take on a life of its own. So, which has been also kind of fun. I'm leveling out a little bit, like I'm relaxing a little bit now.
There you go. Your quiet time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was behind the marketing, but kudos to him, because I kept seeing it get heavily promoted on Twitter. People kept sharing the trailer.
Yeah. We did that with Cinephobia releasing, our distributors. So that was that. I'm glad you were seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested in that.
It was very freaky. I'm like, see, this is what's really missing on the horror scene. It's just a trailer that keeps you in suspense, because everything else seems to be like an action or mystery movie where they give everything away and you're like, okay, I'm gonna just watch it because the famous actors or director.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't have those, so it was how can we rethink all of this to kind of present it in an interesting way. So I'm happy it kind of fell in front of you, and I'm happy you reached out.
Yeah. Totally. It is now available for rent or purchase on Amazon. I bought my copy.
Oh, great.
So tell us a little bit about what the kind of nightmare fuel that makes you want to craft a story around it.
It's interesting. This started out as a short film that I never thought I would make into a feature. I just had an idea. I used to go for jogs with my daughter in a stroller around this local park in New Jersey called Brightwood Park. And I would go around, and I'm kind of an amateur photographer, so I'd kind of look at the light and see all the stuff, and I would take photographs, and I could see that there's, in the right light, these things that you would consider really beautiful can be very sinister. And I started kind of falling in love with the idea of taking this location and turning it into a story. And at that same time, I came up with this idea of a man just getting trapped, going around in circles, kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. And so I put those together, and very no budget filmmaking, two guys and an iPhone made this short called The Pond, which in a way is the kind of basic structure of what Brightwood would become. But the short film, as I was making that short film, just it takes place in the one location, and just one actor, played by me actually. And as I was making that, I thought to myself, wow, how interesting would it be if I were to drop this kind of married couple right on the verge of divorce into this nightmare, and kind of see where that would take them as a couple. And so I finished that short film. It got into some festivals. It opened up some conversations with some great people and great filmmakers. And then time went on, and I started working on another project with my producing partner, Max Wartendijk, who did this and also stars as Dan. And we were working on another project, and then COVID hit. That fell through. And then I just started, it had been percolating in the back of my brain, but I was like, hey, what if I actually worked on this feature with this couple? And I kind of knew the game. I knew the rules. I knew where I wanted it to go. I knew how to end the film. And so I sat down and wrote it. I just took this kind of fuddy-duddy couple, threw them into this scenario and just let them run. And that's kind of how the whole idea started.
Sweet.
From short to feature.
There you go. What are some other advice you would give for those who are trying to pick and choose which of their shorts could actually be elongated to a feature?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that if the story stays with you, if you do something, I mean, I guess there's two ways of doing it, right? There's the way you have the feature in mind, and then you make a short version of that feature, or something from the feature that kind of stands out that you want to make into a short film as kind of like a concept piece. That was not the case for this. So I was straight out just planning to make a short film, but the idea stuck with me and the passion was there, because making a film is not easy. So you need to have the drive and the passion to kind of tell this crazy story and get people on board to tell the story with you in a collaborative way. So it has to be something that really sticks with you and stays with you.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Did you get the acting or filmmaking bug from your late great father, Dana?
Oh yeah. I mean, he was always working on something, always reading plays. Everywhere he lived in his life, practically, he seemed to start some sort of theater. He loved films, but his real passion was theater. So he was obviously on television. So my environment was growing up with him in a small professional 99-seat theater in Santa Paula, California. And so this idea of like adults playing make-believe in front of people has just been the norm in my life since I was a child. It's been hard for me to imagine trying to do anything else, even though time has rightfully forced me to do a number of different odd jobs here and there, but I finally got to make the feature.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
And he was a great actor in his own right. You might remember him as the FBI agent in The Sting, but I first saw him in the movie Fail Safe years before I even saw his famous show.
I love Fail Safe. Yeah. With what's his name? Walter Matthau.
Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon. Yeah, it's
Sidney Lumet. Great film.
Mm-hmm. Sidney Lumet seems to be. Half the time, I wonder how many people actually know him versus have seen his influence on all these other procedurals and political
I don't
dramas.
know, but I mean, I went through a phase where I watched a lot of his films, and I thought that I mean, he's amazing. And I've always, I think, like somewhere, I haven't actually read it yet, but I like intend to read his book, which I've heard is quite good.
Oh, nice. He was a playwright, so it doesn't surprise me that he'd do a book on his own memoirs. It's cool.
Yeah, I love Sidney Lumet, and yeah, again, just my dad growing up in that environment. I didn't get to visit the set of MacGyver too often. I was very young then. But when we did, the idea of like the big cameras and all these people, what are they doing? I mean, it was a lot of fun. They shot it up in Vancouver, at least when I visited, which I remember being very cold.
Stellar. And have you always kind of has the camera just spoken to you more, or has it been kind of more about the staging, lighting, and just the other elements like the music?
That's that I always, when I grew up, it was always the writing process and the dialogue, and then working with actors. I love working with actors, and I love collaborating with actors.
It's everything.
In fact, on this project on Brightwood, I brought them on really early, on like the second draft. I brought them in, and they because the pandemic was still going on, we would just do Zoom calls, and we would start at like once a week, and then it would go 2 times a week. But I would just have them read, and then I would go rewrite, and they would have them read and go rewrite. And it was a very important, working with them and talking and having conversations was a really important part of kind of like distilling down the script and writing. So it's always been the writing first and foremost, and working with actors. Later, I've always loved cameras, and I've always loved lenses, but I never thought that I would shoot a film. I never thought I'd be a DP, and I DP'd this film. And really, like I said, the drive to see the film made and to actually get a feature film made was really strong. So what I did was I sat down and I just started going down basically teaching myself, how am I going to film this movie? How am I going to light this movie? What lenses could I use given the light that's available to me? And so just taking it step by step, in what do I have and what do I have to work with and what do I need to learn in order to actually see that the things could be done. And so during that process, you start to love, at least I nerd out about it now. So it's, I mean, I will say that I'm not, I think I got to a level where I could film this movie. There's obviously, so many amazingly wonderful, talented people I would love to collaborate with in the future. But to have that knowledge and to kind of force yourself to learn these things was amazing. And
that's a good point. I've been on some
yeah.
indie film sets where I kept encountering people who wanted nothing to do with it. I'm like, you need to know it, even if you're not good at it. You should know how to talk to the boom mic guy and all this.
I think so. I mean, I've been a boom operator. I've done sound mixing. I mix some sound here. I do editing all the time. Actually, I edit probably more than anything on short films recently. Yeah.
Look at you go.
All of that is just practice, that having that knowledge, when you're filming a scene, knowing how it will work in the edit or if it won't work is just so important. It's so vital to know what that would actually mean.
Playing God, jury, and executioner, kind of.
Yeah. So, and especially if you're doing low budget filmmaking, right? Because there's the idea of getting a lot of coverage, but we didn't have a lot of time. So I had to make these decisions, like, I'm going to film in this wide up into this line, and then I know I'm going to cut into the close-up. So it's a risk, but I would just shoot it that way. So, because I knew how I was going to edit the film.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite part about directing the actors? Because obviously there's already the unwritten rule, they don't tell you how to direct, you don't tell them how to act, but there still can be a fun bit about foreplay on staging the scene. And
I'm on this project. This is my first feature film, and so it was kind of like jumping off the plane, and figuring out how you're going to land. But I think that I've always treated the collaboration as a conversation, and each actor's, obviously different. And I love what actors bring in, and I invite them to bring as much as they want. I can always say yes or no.
It's a dance.
And so if they have ideas, tell me. I'm always ready for that. And but a constant conversation, that's really what it is. It's up until a point you shoot, and then because this is what was so different, because I've worked with actors in the past, but as someone who was also shooting it, there was this strange, because I'm the only one looking through the camera and I'm basically right there. I had a steadicam and I'm right there. I'm also kind of dancing with them as they're acting, and I can kind of decide what to get and what to shoot. And so it made the whole process really organic. I mean, there was things, we planned out everything to a T. However, once we were there, it was really just like this kind of organic thing. Everybody kind of knew what they were supposed to do, so we could kind of really play around, and it was great.
Wonderful. And when you see the actor just go beyond what both you or they anticipated, isn't it just so fun, just feeling that energy? And
I mean, that's why you do it. You're always kind of looking for lightning, there's something about it. You want a spark of something sincere and real. And if they can reach that, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic feeling. Or if I have to do something to kind of push them a little bit in that direction. I mean, that's the adventure of it all. Trying to capture that lightning.
Go to the top of that mountain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any projects you'd like to hint at that are upcoming?
I mean, I have a really fun thriller that I've been working on. It's kind of a Hitchcockian thriller that I'm also working on with Max Wortendijk producing. Obviously, everything has been kind of a little bit on hold with the strike, rightly so.
Yeah.
We all really support the strike and what's going on, and I hopefully the new meetings that are starting up this Wednesday with the WGA will be
Something's got to
beneficial.
give, man.
Yeah,
It can't keep happening.
but when the time is right, yeah, I look forward to starting a new project. I think it'll be.
What do you recommend for those who pick either storyboarding or shotless, and how to go about that?
I love storyboarding, but the interesting thing I learned on this, as someone again coming only from the first time feature filmmaker, every short I've ever done, I've storyboarded. Here, I worked with Max months in advance on this intense shot list. He was making the schedule. I would sit and just go down everything, every shot, what lens we would use, and he would schedule it down to how long it would take to change the lens, because we were so afraid, especially that we were shooting in the woods, we were shooting during the day where the weather could be changing at any moment, so we just planned everything out.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
I storyboarded probably some scenes, but what I ended up doing, the shot list was so extensive that the night before I would kind of just draw on the side of the script, just kind of give me little reminders, and that was it. And that was a kind of a fun way to work.
I love that. Line scripts are very more common than people even give them credit for.
yeah and then you get to kind of, obviously I think it's almost more for the actors too, because I have the shot list, and if I'm working with Dana Berger, who played Jen, if she has a question, the night before I had just quickly drawn it out in like red ink or something. I can be like, that's the shot that we're gonna try to do here. So it's often for them as well, or the crew that I'm working with.
Good.
Yeah.
And isn't it wild how people are still sometimes snobs about what kind of cameras everyone's using, when it's really what you're comfortable with and what gives you the look you're looking for?
I mean, absolutely. And that's what that I chose to use, just kind of a lighter Sony Alpha camera, because if I had tried to use a bigger camera or heavier camera, I knew how much I was going to be running around, and I had worked with the camera before. So what I did is said, okay, I'm going to use this camera. I know how to work this camera. And then I just focused on lenses and what lenses I could use with this camera to make it the best of what I saw in my head. So
lovely.
Yeah.
And when you get an idea, how do you recommend those who got these ideas to jot down, like keep track of them?
I don't know. That's hard, because I admit that I have a number of ideas in my head all at any time. I think it's really about the one that really just kind of sticks, the one you keep thinking about. And again, it has to, nobody can make a film by themselves. I mean, I wore a lot of hats on Brightwood, but it's a collaborative effort. And you have to find something that you think you can really bring other people on board, and then have this passion that can be the driving force, at least if you're writing and directing it anyway. I think if you're writing it, it has that element as well. You're going to be living with this story for years. So I find that I kind of let these things percolate in my brain for a while, and I might make a note here or there. And then once I really decide I'm going to write that one, I know the opening scene. I kind of know where the story is going. I know how I don't necessarily always know exactly how it's going to end, but I vaguely know where I want it to go. And then I'll sit down and just start writing it. And then it's really about the doing it, which is for me just getting up shit ass early and typing, at like 4:30 in the morning, and just doing it every day until it's done. And sometimes that's a quick process, and sometimes it can take months, if not years. So
And what do you feel are just some degrees of a production that are often kind of ignored, for better or worse? That
sound all the time. I would say have a good understanding of audio, have a good understanding of mic placements, where you would, where you want them to put the lavs. Understand that a lot of times people forget that you can see the lav packs, or you can see the lavs in their shirts. You always just have to be kind of aware of these things. Also, though, to really take the time to get good audio on set, on the location.
Get that Foley and
get it, because you really don't want to, especially in a low budget situation, unless you have a lot of money for post, you really don't want to do ADR. You want to try to capture the sound on set, which we almost everything except for maybe one or two words was all on location sound for this. So I would say sound.
That's good. And it's wild too how so many do the whole we'll fix it in post, and it's like you just can't recreate it.
Oh no. It'll never actually there. I still hear things that I'm kind of like, but no one will really notice probably watching the film. But yeah, the idea of fixing anything in post is, I always, unless it's specifically planned out for that, like you're doing a special effects shot. But yeah, you want to capture as much as you can in the camera and with the mic, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what do you recommend for going about sound mixing? Renting out a studio, or just having a reliable team in that department?
So the story of the sound of Brightwood starts because I do a little bit of do you mean sound mixing or sound design, or kind of all aspects of it?
Just all aspects, just who to answer to and make sure it doesn't get compromised.
So I love doing sound design. I'm not a sound engineer. That's another level of skill. So what I love to do is, as I'm kind of editing the film, I'll say, oh, maybe the kind of cool sound can be here, or we'll have like the rustling leaves and high pitch noise here. So I'll start laying down bits of sound design and some alternative music that probably won't be used, but just something to have it there. I'll start laying down the sound designs very organically as I'm editing and as the story's kind of coming together. And then with Brightwood, I then worked with a sound engineer and dialogue mixer named Joey Zampala, who's a very great musician. I'm sorry?
Hi, Joey.
Yeah. And hi, Joey. And he kind of took my initial sound design and added to it and mixed it finally and got it really sounding nice and got the dialogue sounding nice. And then a few months later, we got the score finally from Jason Cook, who's my composer, and I've worked with Jason for a number of years, and he did this amazing thing where he really just handed me this kind of 84-minute symphony of music. And and he knew this as well, but I was never going to be able to use it all, and hopefully it will be released sometime soon. But what it allowed me to do is I could go in and kind of pick these pieces and kind of figure out how they fit into the story very organically as well. And that turned out to be beautiful. And then once all of that was done, I have a friend who is a great sound engineer, Jeff Prosser, in Los Angeles. And we got into a studio, and he did the final 5.1 up mix, and
there we go.
made it sound amazing. So
Dolby.
that was the amazing story of Brightwood's sound.
Isn't it also wild how you can use it as part of a horror movie's tension?
Oh, I mean, I think that particularly with films like this, especially you're having this kind of repetitive nature of seeing the forest and seeing the woods. And again, you're showing us typically what would be considered maybe pretty things or things in the light where it's just woods and forest. You slap on a good piece of tension building ambient music, and you got a totally different way of looking at it. I mean, that's the whole beauty of the art form, because you can juxtapose these images and the sounds and create different feelings and moods.
Lovely. And you were fortunate enough to release this movie at Horrorhound, among other places. What are some other festivals that really have a good turnout and are very friendly to independent movies?
Well, we opened at Other Worlds, which I think might have been that. I think that festival is their it was the last festival, but it was such an amazing festival. So I do hope I do hope they bring it back at some point. Another Hole in the Head in San Francisco, speaking of the bridge behind you, was great.
Yeah. Those who can't see, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. The crowd was great. I would say the Salem Horror Fest in Salem, Massachusetts was definitely a kind of amazing highlight. Kay Lynch is fantastic, and she just runs a great festival, and the people there were fantastic. So it was a great screening. It was great to see it on a big screen. Yeah.
That's very eye-opening.
But I will say all the fests that it's as a filmmaker and as a film, when you're invited to a fest, it is a special thing, and each festival was great. Panic Fest was great in Kansas City, but we were only invited for the streaming part of the festival, so I didn't actually get to go there. I would have loved to have gone there. But when you get invited to a festival, it really is, they're taking a chance on the film, and that type of support, we would not be where we are today had these festivals not taken a chance on the film. So I thank all of them so much for doing
altogether, since we're very digital now, do you feel like sometimes it can kind of isolate or get people too comfortable, like, hey, we'll fix anything if we make a mistake, and it's like, oh, you can't cover this up?
Oh, in terms of filmmaking?
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think certainly there are elements that the technology is now so advanced. You really can go make a kind of some beautiful images and beautiful things with the phone. But yeah, at the end of the day, I can't, at least for me, it really is about kind of the collaborative experience of doing it. And so that means having to get out, and it means having to go on a location or go to a studio and shooting with people that you're doing this kind of insane art where you hope it'll all work out. And I love it. I'm not really sure if that answers your question, but at least for me, that's
it means it's not a problem. I love this confidentiality boost. And
yeah.
So for students or independents or even professionals working, what's the best way to just kind of do a little checklist, both mentally and physically, do some background checks, also just make sure there's no bad apples on your set. I know it can sometimes be hard, and sometimes it rears its head too late in the process.
Well, you have to. Yes, you have to know your crew, and you have to know that all of these people are there, again, for this kind of insane art, insane passion, and you need to be able to run a safe set, a safe environment. Everybody needs to feel comfortable, and everybody needs to know that they can come to you, especially if you're the director or producer, come to you with any issues and be able to communicate with you. Because, as I said before, this type of collaboration on all levels, in all aspects of filmmaking, is a constant conversation that is just having that you want to have, and you want it to be free flowing. So with that in mind, you go into all of these things, working with all of these people, and everyone's going to have different strengths, but then hopefully you can kind of wrangle them all together and set them all on the course that you are all trying to make.
Good. Because even if it's just 2 days, it's a long amount of time to just have to put up with someone who's, killing your morale.
Sure. And I think that a lot of that, as someone who's as someone who is the director, you just have to be ready. Again, you have to kind of understand the different dynamics of communications that could potentially be going on, and being able to kind of get in there and ease a situation, or anything that might come up. That's directing, really. It's not as simple as this, but so much of it is solving problems, and a lot of those problems tend to be, if not a technical one, tend to be a communicative one. So you're constantly, either solving one of those. Either it's a technical issue you got to figure out, or you got to figure out like what's going on with somebody, and figuring out what they're doing.
Right. Something happened that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lovely. And given how, do you feel like there's always going to be some digital platforms? I see people putting their material on Redbox and Tubi. Amazon still has it, but they got to make sure it's by one of the companies that, they're approved.
Right. Oh, you mean in terms of like self-distribution or
self or pre-planned?
Right. So we were lucky enough to get a distributor, and that's harder than you think. A lot of films go without finding distribution these days. So that process started with my producer reaching out to a number of different sales agents. And then we got our sales agent, who's wonderful. And she, for a very long time, went about trying to sell the film in the United States, and it was not easy. It's the sell of our film is there's no stars. Everyone would say we really enjoyed it. It's a very fun film. It worked out, but we don't know how to necessarily sell it, and that's the game. So eventually, Ray Murray at Cinephobia Releasing just kind of again took a chance on the film. There was something about it. He was willing to take a risk, and he actually, paid, and is a good company. And there are a lot of scams out there that you have to really be careful.
Yeah, don't throw your movie away.
Now they use, I think, an aggregator to get up onto all of the platforms, and I do know that if you choose to do self-distribution, you could do that. But I do think having the kind of push with a distributor is still something that I preferred to have, and don't foresee wanting necessarily to self-distribute. However, I do know other filmmakers that have a very different idea on that, and the next films that they do, they would go straight to the aggregator that puts it up on all the different platforms and just go through them. So that might be the wave of the future. Who knows?
Yeah. Tough to say. It's always changing.
Yeah.
Even stuff that we recommend will last barely half a decade now, it seems.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, well, this has been a delight. and just very to the point, and just, we need laid back chats like this. So this is lovely, sir. And
well, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, great questions, and this has been a delight.
So stay steady on both 2 feet.
Yeah, you as well.
I will try. I'll let you know when it hits the podcaster feed. And
what will it actually go out on? Like, will it be on the Jacked Up Review show, or
okay, Anchor, Podbean.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was just listening to one of the episodes, I think with the Mystery Science Theater.
Oh yeah, those are fun. Yes.
Yeah, I love Mystery Science Theater. I used to watch those all the time. And as I was listening to your podcast, I was like, I think the first thing I ever saw was actually the movie. It must have been, because then it took me to the show. Yeah.
Whatever outlet you can do to refer you. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Have a good one. Bye.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up